Hume.
Thank you, Madam Acting President. Last week the Albanese government held their much-anticipated economic roundtable, which was hyped up to be this enormously grand event that would deliver huge ideas about how to fix Australia's productivity crisis. But of course, after weeks of kites being flown by the unions and the Prime Minister hosing down the Treasurer's ideas, we finally know what the outcomes were, or do we? Because here's the problem. What did Australians get for their taxpayer dollars? Just like this Jobs and Skills Summit 3 years prior to that, it was another Labor letdown. Only this time it was held behind closed doors, so we don't actually know what was discussed in the room. What we do know is that there were no tangible measures that came out of this roundtable. There was no plan for business confidence, or there was no plan to reduce red tape, or a strategy to get power prices down. There's not a single measure to give relief to small businesses or to households that have been struggling for the last 3 years under Labor's economic mismanagement. And while Labor and the Treasurer was locked up inside this round table, Australian families and small businesses continued to do it tough. Now, let me give you some facts. Fact 1, under Labor, productivity has gone backwards. It's gone backwards by about 5% in the last 3 years of the Albanese government. Fact 2, standards of living have gone backwards. They've collapsed by more than 6% under Labor. That's why, if you're feeling poorer, you in fact are poorer. Your standard of living has collapsed. And fact 3, the Reserve Bank has said that living standards will continue to fall under this government unless something is done to address sluggish productivity. Now, the roundtable therefore had a really important job to do. Australians were promised a productivity turbocharge, but what did we get? We got a flat battery. In fact, the only tangible outcome from this summit was the adoption of, surprise, a coalition policy to freeze the National Construction Code. That's right, after 3 days of talking, after weeks of floating ideas and the spin being spun to the media, Labor's big idea was to copy a coalition policy that we took to the last election, one that they previously opposed, I might add. Now, don't get me wrong. That freeze is welcome after their first term saw them to deliver 400 additional new laws that cost $5 billion, added $5 billion to the cost of construction, 1,500 new regulations in just the Treasury and infrastructure portfolios alone, and changes to the National Construction Code in 2022 that made it harder and more expensive to build new homes, and that deepened the housing affordability crisis in Australia. So it's nice to see that Labor's had a change of heart, but unfortunately a 1 year delay is not a comprehensive freeze, and more needs to be done, particularly in housing. Because this government has overseen the biggest growth in population in Australia since the 1950s, but it's also presided over a housing construction collapse. Under the coalition government, in 9 years, we averaged 200,000 homes, new homes built every single year. Under Labor, it's been 170,000. But instead of supporting Australians into homes, Labor continues to support, instead, superannuation funds acting as corporate landlords. Now, on this side of politics, we fundamentally believe that individuals, Australian families should own their own homes. We don't think big corporates should own your homes for you. We certainly don't think big super funds should do so. And that leads me to one of the other outcomes of the productivity roundtable, and that, of course, was the learning that Labor would now review the superannuation fund performance test to, wait for it, remove obstacles or impediments to super investing in housing and other areas where there is clearly a national need. Now, let's be very, very clear about this. There is nothing stopping superannuation funds investing in any asset, but it has to financially stack up. Otherwise, it robs you, the superannuation fund member, of the best financial outcome that you can get. We certainly don't want the performance test to become a superannuation fund vehicle for Labor's political agenda. But you can trust Labor to emerge from a round table with changes to unlock the performance test as the key to unlocking economic growth. Heaven help us. Could you not come up with something better than that? To really move the dial on productivity, lower energy prices, genuine tax reform, more flexible industrial relations, a step change in our educational standards. But that's all Labor came up with, a change to the superannuation performance test. It looks like the Treasurer got so carried away sitting in the Prime Minister's chair in that cabinet, around that cabinet table, that he forgot about the real purpose of this meeting. Australians deserve a government that understands that productivity isn't just an opportunistic slogan. Productivity might not sound like a sexy topic, but it is the secret weapon to better living standards in Australia, and to improve our living standards we need to see real action from this government.
Thank you,
and not just
Senator
talk.
Hume. Senator Mulholland.